do you remember your onboarding time? Some people will now say, oh, yes, I do. It was a great time. People actually showed me how to run the business, how to use the software, and who's responsible and accountable for what kind of task. And at the end of these 6 weeks to 3 months or 6 months, depending on which country you are, you will probably have said, what an amazing experience. And I'm very happy to have joined that business, that organization. However, some people of you probably will say, well, it was a harrowing experience. I had to run around. I had to ask people for work. I didn't really know who is the person I had to talk to. They always said my door is always open, but they were always too busy to actually deal with me. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. The relevance of onboarding, not only from a legal point of view, which is the probation time, of course, but what is it what we have to do in due course of the onboarding process from the beginning to actually accepting someone into your organization with a full-time contract, most likely. So first, just for context here, when you talk about probation time and onboarding, we have to talk about very different time frames. And it means the more narrow your time frame is, the more you have to focus on getting things done, the quicker, the better. In Germany, for example, you have a probation time of 6 months. In other countries, it's only 3 months. In other countries, just 6 weeks. In some countries, even only 4 weeks, which is very, very short. The shorter your time frame is, the more you have to focus on what are the most relevant tasks where I have to see is the person able to do them. When they're able to do them, welcome to the business. If not, you have to get rid of them. The quicker, the better. Because you do not want to onboard and hire someone who, as it turns out afterwards, isn't the pick you expected them to be. However, if you want to keep someone, there's a lot of things you have to do, because sometimes you want to keep someone, but they say at the end of the probation time, thank you very much for giving me this impression, but that is not for me. Thank you, no thank you, and I am moving on. So there are 3 main aspects we have to talk about when you want to do it right when it comes to the implementation of proper onboarding with probation time. So number 1 is the preparation. First, what I see very frequently is that people say, oh yeah, we have people who are responsible and accountable for onboarding here, and this is Mr. Smith and Mrs. Miller. Full stop. And then I say, so what is it that they do with them? Yeah, someone goes there and then they get onboarded. I say, okay, so what do they do with them? Yeah, they onboard them on the task they will do in the future. So, and they are just wallowing around, beating around the bush, not really telling me what they do, because obviously they do not know. And of course, when you want to go down the route of, say, I just send someone to some person and that person is in my business or my organization for a very long time and they know what they're doing, they have onboarded countless people and it just works, you can do that. However, if these people call in sick, have an accident, get sick for a long time due to other health issues, they go on vacation, they have to do much work with real-world business, with daily business, or they are absent for any other reason, suddenly you have no onboarding process anymore. Most onboarding processes I still see are not structured and not documented. They are only relying on the person doing them. And of course you can say there is this one person doing it, but that is the riskiest way of how to do onboarding. What you need to do is you need to have written down structured content where you say, this is what we want to do during the time when you are at that person's department. And if you are very good, and that's the best way how to do it, you have a professional software. I mean, of course, you can do this in Microsoft Word or Excel or OneNote. That's possible. By the way, always check if this is compliant with data protection laws in your country, because in quite a number of countries, that approach would not be data protection compliant. So what you have to look at is there any professional software you could use that not only the person onboarding someone, but also the person receiving the onboarding can confirm that they actually understood what you told them. I give you a very simple example. If ever any one of you sat in front of a piece of software, let's say SAP, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Access, Microsoft Project, and someone shows you, oh, this is what we do. Click, 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 click. And even when they explain it to you slowly and in detail, the moment you sit in front of the computer doing it on your own is the moment where you say, I think I did not understand it as good as I thought. This is why we have to do it ourselves to actually learn it. When you get a driver's license, you don't learn driving by watching people drive. You learn driving by actually driving and getting feedback on your driving, including doing the exams accordingly. You need structured content where people can tick boxes afterwards. So the person delivering the onboarding says, this has been delivered, but the person perceiving the onboarding also has to confirm, I did that and I confirm I am able to do it from here. What you also need is, besides that aspect, is you need people to talk to in case something goes wrong. Let's just say someone wants to be onboarded, but reality comes in between. There's a huge issue, incident with the client, and the person who should deliver the onboarding says, look, I have to deal with a client situation. I'm sorry, but I have to focus on that. And then people are just sitting around starting to feel bad. And then you have negative talk going around because they say, we hired this person and they are not doing anything. What kind of work ethics do they have? You need to have a person that can be the dedicated person to talk to in case things go wrong. And when you have all of that, the content structured, documented, you have a dedicated other person to talk to when things go wrong, you need to have time contingencies, which are pretty strict. Because as soon as people know they have a lot of time, what they do is they give people repetitive tasks. I'll give you an example. Someone gets on board in the IT department and then someone tells them, look, this is how we set up a user account. And now you set up user accounts for the next 2 weeks just to get used to the whole thing. When their job should not be setting up user accounts, they are not willing to do that because they didn't join your organization to set up user accounts. Just because someone finally knows something and you transfer the knowledge to them, giving them a repetitive task only to have them away from you doesn't lead to anything. So be sure that the time contingencies and also time restraints you give to people always are a bit of a challenge, because that means people actually get work done and focus on onboarding people as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So when you have that preparation work done, aspect number 2 is the feedback. And we have 3 kinds of feedback. The first one is monthly feedback. Very important here. Monthly feedback is formal feedback. Unfortunately, I very often see that the monthly feedback goes the following. People just meet somewhere and then someone says, hey, you're new in the business. How's it going? And they say, yeah, it's going pretty well. Cool. And that was the monthly feedback. That is, of course, not how it should go. Sit down, you document the monthly feedback. Also, again, here, be aware of the data protection laws which specifically apply to these situations. The monthly feedback always should point to what's going well, but also what's not going well. I give you an example of how things can go right or wrong. So, for example, and I sat in the room when this happened during a coaching session. I sat there and the leader said, yeah, we expected a bit more motivation from you. And first, the beginning of the talk was very positive, but then he said, yeah, but look, from the motivational point of view, we expected a bit more. And then the person said, what do you mean with that? Yeah, you don't look too motivated to us. We get the impression. I also heard it from others. And when he asked, who said that? Oh, I can't tell you. Okay. So what do you actually mean? Yeah, you just should be a bit more motivated when it comes to work. And then the person, what do you mean with just this motivational thing? Yeah, look, I'll give you an example. When you set up workstations where people are going to work, IT workstations, other people set up 15 workstations a day, you just set up 6 a day. That is the point you have to get to in the very first place. You have to give them specific data. The burden of proof is with you, not with the other person. You cannot go by feelings, random statements, hearsay evidence, which is pseudo evidence, by the way. And you also cannot just tell people, oh, I have this feeling, putting out something very arbitrary, and people have no chance to properly react to that. Be sure that monthly feedback is always based on proof, facts, evidence, because that's the only way how to make things better. If you have everything to prove it, then people are often very willing to change things. In this case, the reason why that person only set up 6 instead of 15 workstations a day was a problem in logistics, a wrong approach the newly hired person took. And as soon as the logistics problem was solved, they were setting up 17 a day, so even 2 more than the people who already worked in the business. The second kind of feedback is quarterly feedback, which of course only applies when you have a longer time period, for example, 6-month probation time. The quarterly feedback is where you have to give people a dedicated tendency. Where are we going with this? You must tell people, look, we are now 3 months in, and in my opinion, when you keep going that way, everything is going to be fine. Or what also could be, you say, look, we are 3 months in here, and due to reason A, B, and C, all backed up with data, proof, evidence, when this doesn't change and gets to, then you have to tell them where you want to go, and gets to that point, then I don't think this will be a fit for us. And it's perfectly fine when people say, look, this is not for me, or it's too stressful. I don't like the business. I don't click with the product or the idea or the organization or the team or anyone else in the group. Then it's fine when people leave. You want to be sure that you hire the right person. Unfortunately, often people say, yeah, we just kept the person because, it's so hard to find anyone. And what is the impression we give to HR when we need someone else to hire and the cost connected with it? There's a general rule. If in doubt, keep them out. When you hire someone who after a month of work only gets you to a mild smirk saying, yeah, well, not too bad, I guess, I can tell you it's not getting better as soon as they are properly in the business, because then they are safe from a work and legal point of view. So the quarterly feedback has to tell people, where is this going? If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. It's better to have a strong and quick end with good feedback that you both can walk out with your head up high in a good relationship than ending up with a massive argument after 6 months time. And after 6 months, you have nothing. Even losing 3 months of trying to onboard someone who is not going to make the cut is painful enough, but don't make it 6 months. If in doubt, keep them out. But when you see someone who's doing very well, tell them, look, this is going very well. Is it going very well from your side? So be sure that you also tick all the boxes. So at the end, they can agree with you that this is going to be a fit in the long run. The third kind of feedback is the so-called pit stop feedback. Pit stop feedback is not documented, not written down. It's informal. It can happen somewhere in the coffee room if no one else is listening. Very, very important is it has to be confidential. No one else is allowed to listen, which is why often when you do it in the hallway, it's not the ideal place, not the ideal place at all. It is very important that pit stop feedback focuses on what's going right and what's going wrong. So when you ask someone, hey, how are things going? And they say, yeah, it's going pretty well, but I still don't have the card to access the company carpool. I still have to ask people for their card. It's pretty painful. I'm here for 6 weeks now. Why don't I have the card? Perfect, you can fix it. So pit stop feedback shows you these tiny details that can be pretty annoying, but you as a more senior person can fix very quickly. And as soon as you fix them quickly, it means that people see you're caring about them. When you care, they care. It's called reciprocity. That's why you do pit stop feedback on a weekly basis, at least on a weekly basis. You can do it even more often, but weekly basis is bare minimum to fulfill. And the last aspect is how to implement everything of what we talked about here. So first, you have to focus on a very clear measurability of results, including the feedback. Do not set up any kind of onboarding document where it's only about, get them to know the whole culture. It's too often random chumbawamba instead of proper measurable data, proper measurable content. You have to give, when you implement all of this, a direction. What's going well? What's not going well? How is the tendency going? Is this going to be a fit? Yes or no? Both sides, you and the other side, want to know, is this a fit for me or should I probably move on? It's better for both sides when you very quickly know when it's a fit, because then you can advance a lot quicker, or when you also know it's not a fit, so you can say, that's not for me. Thank you. No, thank you. What you also have to do is you have to be proactive when it comes to talking about problems. And I'm deliberately not calling it challenges. We have to talk about problems. When you have someone, for example, where you say, look, from a content point of view and your skills, it's an A+. You are an ace at what you're doing. However, we received feedback from our trainees that you were pretty condescending, very arrogant, even talking to one of our vocational trainees who are now here on an internship, telling them, I'm explaining it to you for people who never saw a university from the inside. So talking down to them because they didn't go to uni, didn't study. And by the way, that's a real world scenario that really happened with one of my clients. Someone said exactly that. And there, the department leader made unambiguously clear, look, we have to talk about this. We have to sit down together. If you say this is just how you are, then you're not a fit for this organization. We treat everyone with respect, no matter where they come from and no matter what kind of background education they have. When they are hired with us, they are a good fit for what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. So let's talk about how to fix the situation. Be proactive on this, because when you, especially on interhuman connection and interhuman relationships, if you don't address things very quickly, the atmosphere will change very quickly to a very negative point of view on that person. Then you have the team versus the person against the team, and then the political games begin, which lead to no sustainable outcome whatsoever. Be proactive on what's going well, what's not going well. Show them tendencies. When you then do everything which I told you before. You will have a probation time and an onboarding process where at the end of all of this process, both sides will say, that was a success. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the organization. And the person you want to hire says, I am happy to be here. And of course, you might now say, well, that's a lot of work to do, isn't it? And yes, it is. I fully agree. If you now have any kind of ideas, questions, remarks, feedback, feel free to contact me. nb@nb-networks.com is my email address. You also find it in the show notes of this podcast, including my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to connect with me on there, and also feel free to message me anytime, and then we can chat from there. Thank you very much as well to everyone who contacted me during the last weeks. Thank you very much also for the very respectful and professional exchange. Even when we disagreed on certain things, it was great to be in contact with each and every one of you. Thank you very much for that. The second aspect, which I always recommend, is because we have live sessions as well. You can talk to me in German and English, of course, in a live session. We have one live session every month. And the question now will be, when is the next one? The last one just happened, so we'll have another one soon. The only way how to get access to that is when you go to expert.nb-networks.com. When you put your email address in there, you receive only one email per week every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content ad-free guarantee. And in this email, you then see what kind of content I publish. So you get free access to all the articles I published. And of course, you see the direct link to the live sessions, including date and time and how to access it. So feel free to go there. It's also mentioned in the show notes of this podcast, expert.nb-networks.com. Looking forward to talking live to you. And the third aspect is the most important one. Apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive aspect, the positive outcome, and the positive changes in your organization and personal as well as work life that you obviously want to see. I'm available 24/7 for help. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.